In this video, I'm going to share 9 critical components of a high-performing sales team. So if you're in the coaching and education business and you're looking to replace yourself in the sales role, or if you have an existing team that you're wanting to grow, scale, or just simply improve, then this is for you. My name is Noah Cosby, and over 15 years, I grew our sales department from scratch to producing over $100 million a year in coaching sales. And this is my sales operating system. And these 9 critical components are what has the team perform consistently and at a high level. Whether you're building a small team or you want to build a big team, then this is going to help you. So let's dive in. So component number 1 is the selling system. This is when you're defining what you sell, who you sell it to, and how you sell it. So if you're in the early stages of the business, if you're doing the sales or if you have a small team doing the sales, you really want to get this dialed in before you start scaling it out. So what is it that you offer? What is the program definition? I've learned that if you give your team one thing to sell or one program to sell, they're going to convert a lot better than if you give them a big menu of all different kinds of directions and offers that people can choose from. The price, fix the price. When we fix the price, that sent the message to the sales team and the customer that the price is not negotiable. If you start changing the price and it moves up and down, then the sales team is going to constantly try to bend it, discount it, and devalue the brand. And terms are what the minimum amount of financial tuition that you're going to accept to enroll a student. So obviously, our goal is to get people to pay in full for the tuition. That was the standard. Then we started offering a financing program, but we had to create very specific financing terms. Otherwise, salespeople are just going to kind of keep pushing it lower and lower and lower. So we decided that the absolute bare minimum was going to be 25% of the tuition, was going to be the minimum deposit. Anything less than that, 10% was the bottom, and that had to be approved by management. And then we had to determine, well, what are the length of the financing terms? How long can someone finance out the payments? Salespeople are going to want to push this out as long as possible because that's going to create the least amount of resistance for the client. We didn't like having the financing program going longer than the program itself because that meant somebody's program would expire and they still had payments left over. That was going to create a bad situation. So we made a business decision to say, okay, we're going to accept this is the lowest amount of money that people can pay to get involved in the program, and this is the maximum amount of financing that we're going to allow somebody to pay over time. And those fixed boundaries are really, really important for your sales team to have because they'll learn how to operate within those boundaries. If they're loose, then the sales team starts expanding and they want to take the path of least resistance. The next thing is, who do we sell to? So we want to make sure that our sales team understands who our core customer is, what scenarios they're in, and who our core customer is not. Because what we don't want is to try to force a square peg into a round hole. And so that's what we sell. This is who we sell to. And then finally, how do you sell it? So it's really important to make sure you have a clear path of how people become lead. What does that funnel look like? What are the videos and the messaging that they're introduced to before they become a lead, and how they enter in someone's lead book? So are you working on do you have like an event that people go to and then they fill out an application and become a lead? Or is it a VSL to a strategy session and they become a lead? Because that's going to make a big difference in how you approach that type of a lead. The next thing is your framework. What framework should people follow to enroll a client? What a lot of times happens, especially in the beginning, we didn't have any framework. We were just getting on the phone with people that were interested and doing our best, being really excited to pitch the program and close the deal. And so that works for a little bit until you start trying to figure out how to systemize. How do you teach others how to do it? How do you go back and listen to calls and diagnose where somebody needs to improve? If there's no framework we're following, then things are a mess. And so we want to avoid shooting from the hip and kind of playing it by ear and giving everybody a strong foundational system to follow. And that is the framework. And the framework is built on principles. This keeps everybody on task and gets the team performing consistently. Now, from the framework, we go to the script. Now, our philosophy on script is that these conversations are pretty transformational. They can go in a lot of different directions. So it's really hard to script every single word that somebody's going to use. And so I wrote a sample script for new hires so that they had something to start with. But we focused a lot more on training people on the framework and the principles of the framework, because when a sales rep understands the framework, the objectives, what are we meant to do in this step to this step to this step, then they can craft their own language. They can craft their own verbiage, the phrases that match their personality and that they get convicted with. So that's okay. The script is going to evolve, and every individual sales rep might say things a little bit differently, but as long as they're operating on the same framework, then we're all good. The next thing is standards of enrollment. This is something that we adopted. We started learning really early on that some clients were harder to work with and caused more headaches than others. And so what we did was we developed enrollment criteria. These were standard characteristics that we felt were consistent with a great student, somebody that puts in time into the program, somebody that's coachable and follows the process, somebody that's willing to invest their money into their growth, tools, and relationships, somebody that has motivation beyond just making money, somebody that is action-oriented and decisive. We found that those are the characteristics that made someone a really great candidate. And so we adopted what we call the Ivy League method. And I have a different training video on this, but what we did was we kind of adopted a very similar process like the Ivy Leagues. We didn't just accept everybody and try to sell everyone into the program. We were selective with who we enrolled. And instead of a sales call, we turned this into an interview, and we made sure that each candidate, each prospect met these criteria. And if they did, then it made it a lot easier to enroll them. And when they got into the program, they did the work, they paid in full, and they became a great, powerful testimonial. There's a whole other group of people out there that want something for nothing. They want to make excuses and not do the work. And if we waste our time trying to sell to those people, we weaken our position, we devalue our brand, and we really create reputation problems. So we developed a very specific enrollment standard that we made sure to train each sales team member on, so they knew, how that we weren't here to get a square peg into a round hole. And then the sales assets. So these are going to be the branded assets that your team can use to enroll clients. So your pitch decks, your credibility collateral, and client success stories, things that they can use in the sales process to strengthen the opportunity to close deals. So that's selling system number one. That system number one is your selling system. That is what you want to build first. So if you're in the sales role yourself, or if you have a couple of sales reps working for you, get this dialed in and make it a system before you start expanding and growing and bringing on other reps. Now, the second thing and the second piece of the puzzle is the operational system. This is what's going to determine how efficient and effective your sales team is going to perform. You want to remove as much friction as possible in receiving a lead, working a lead, and enrolling a client. And that comes down to how you manage data, how you track results, and what tools you use, your tech stack for selling. So the first thing you're going to pick is your CRM. There's a bunch of different CRMs out there, but they come out of the box, and then you got to customize them. So you want to customize how you're going to route leads to specific sales reps and classify those leads. What are the rules going to be to get leads assigned? What are the custom fields that need to be put into the lead record so that if I'm a sales rep and I open that lead, how do I know where that lead came from, when they did what, and what information that they've already given us, so I can pick up the phone and connect with that person right away without asking a question that I should already know. So those are your lead fields, how you label the lead, how you lay out the lead record itself. So open up a lead record, and if you were a brand new sales rep, can you determine, do you know what to do with this? Do you have to click in a bunch of places to get the information, or is it all in one spot? And then what lead pipeline stages, how are they going to manage the lead as they work it? As it's uncontacted and then it's contacted, does it have an appointment? Did it miss an appointment? Did we pitch the program? Did they enroll? Is it a follow-up? Is it closed lost? Like you want to give these sales reps a system to follow so they can manage the leads. This is how you're going to have your business intelligence. If this isn't set up, then you're not going to have any KPI. You're not have a good way to track KPIs and have any level of business intelligence. And sales reps are not going to do this on their own because they're not wired to think administratively. So you have to get this built for them and teach them how to use it, make it simple and easy for them, and get them rolling. The next thing is your communication system. So what phone system do we use? We got to set up the inbound phone routing, the outbound phone calling, how we're going to record calls, the reporting system, setting up and receiving voicemails, what phone numbers we're going to dial from, and are those phone numbers registered appropriately? Because if your phone number is coming up as potential spam, then people aren't going to pick up and you're going to have a very, very low contact rate. How we do text messages and SMS. So inbound and outbound text messaging to get a hold of clients. Video conferencing software. Are you using Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams? What are you using there? How do your clients send emails? How do your sales reps send and receive emails? Where is that stored? Your calendaring system. So for booking appointments. And then the automation sequences. So the types of emails and texts that are going to go in and out when somebody becomes a lead and books an appointment or misses an appointment or moves from an opportunity stage from one to the next. That all has to get set up. Payment processing. Okay, how will a sales rep actually collect money? Credit cards, checks, wire instructions, financing setup, collecting outstanding balance after the sale is made. And then when they do make a sale, how are they going to enroll the client? How do they close out the sales record? How do they send the client the student agreement that they should sign? How do they kick off the welcome email sequences for new clients and onboard that student into the program? There should be a way for the sales rep to hand that off to the fulfillment team seamlessly. And then KPIs. How are we measuring our KPIs? And I always like to have two KPI systems for the team. One is a sales leaderboard, which is specifically for the sales team to see how their sales performance is doing and where they rank among their other peers. And then the second is a management dashboard for me or a sales manager to look at the more granular KPIs. What I've learned is that sales reps don't really need to see all the details of the KPIs. They need to understand how their performance is being measured. But if you show them too much data, they're going to get really caught up with it and they can get in their own head. And so I simplified all that by just showing them a leaderboard and that's it. And I leave the granular details to be for my eyes or my manager eyes only. So that is your operational system. So we have to have a strong operational system in place if you want to grow and expand the team and get them working seamlessly. I've been through several iterations and installations of CRMs, customizing them, building them out, and just trying to constantly make the user interface easier and easier and smoother for sales reps. And so this is something that just doesn't come out of the box. You've got to put some thought into designing this. The third piece of the equation is the team culture, which is how does the team operate? What's their standard of behavior? What are their value systems? Every sales rep on the team is an individual and they have different personalities and different interests, etc. But what bonds them together is that they all are in alignment with this culture. And a winning sales culture includes 5 critical components. The first one is accountability. This is where they're taking ownership of their outcome. We call it living above the line, where we take responsibility for the outcome, good or bad. And what we don't do is live below the line, where we bury our head in the sand when something's not going well, or we blame the leads or some other circumstance, or we justify the low performance as if it's normal. Okay, those types of behaviors and responses and cultures are not going to make us better. And so in our culture, we're going to be accountable and live above the line. And that is a standard among everyone. The second one is work ethic. So we've got to be willing to do the work. And a lot of times, unfortunately, some sales reps can be kind of lazy where they just want to kind of sit back and get somebody else to book, fill their calendar up for them. And they're only going to call a lead when they have an appointment on the calendar. And, the lead's got to be really qualified and almost ready to buy to be worth their time. That kind of mentality is kind of a lazy mentality, and that doesn't work in a winning sales culture. We got to be willing to get on the phone. And if we got a live lead on the phone, then we've got to do whatever work is necessary to work that lead up the gradient to get them to buy. We're not just going to sift through and burn leads to find the easy laydowns. When we have additional leads, we got to do the work in dialing those leads and making the calls and spending the time to farm those leads to get more appointments on the schedule. Okay. So, we always made sure that, if you're an outbound rep, you're grinding, you're dialing hard. If you are a closer or an inbound rep, then the time between calls should be spent training yourself, training others, or outbounding your own leads to try to get more opportunities on the board. But there's never idle time or lazy time. We've got our foot on the gas and we're going to be pushing through and we're going to be doing the work. The third one is my favorite, which is improvement. Improvement refers to mastering your craft, proactively seeking ways to improve yourself to get better in your craft. So a lot of people will do something for 10 years and they don't have 10 years of experience. They have 1 year of experience 10 times in a row. Because they're not seeking, well, where can I get better? Where are my weaknesses? They're not studying game film or listening to their calls. They're not engaging in trainings or role plays or practices or reading books or going to events or participating in personal development. Those are the things that revolve around mastering your craft. And this should be a cultural thing on the team. A lot of times salespeople are not used to practicing. They're not used to improving because the culture they came from did not require that. And so on our team, that is a very normal practice, is for sales reps to constantly practice and train and improve. The fourth one is service, leaving everyone in a better place than when we found them. This is really important because in the coaching and consulting world, our reputation is everything. And if we start mistreating clients just because they can't afford our program or they're too difficult or they have objections and we want to prove them wrong, that can become a problem with some sales reps. They get egotistical around it. Look, we have to all be on the same page that no matter whether we're going to make a sale or not, we need to give this client a great experience. Because if we don't, they could complain online and that hurts our reputation, that hurts our ad performance, that hurts our trust, and that hurts our conversion. We want to avoid that. So we want to make sure to always, always, always leave people in a better place than when you found them. And then number 5 is teamwork and being supportive and encouraging of each other rather than being like a cutthroat Shark Tank. Our sales reps are going to share their best practices. When you have your top performing sales reps helping your lower performing sales reps learn new tricks and new bits and new techniques, that's how you're going to get a high performing culture. And when the team's average elevates, then everybody wins. What we don't want is that cutthroat Shark Tank culture of like, okay, I want you to lose so I can win. That's toxic. That's not going to work here. So when we instill these 5 pieces of culture onto our teams, we've got a strong winning team. So if you notice, number 1 is selling system, then operational system, and defining your team culture. If you've got those 3 things in place, now you can work on bringing people onto the team, and we want to create a strong recruiting system. So this is where in my career, I was awful, absolutely terrible at this in the beginning. And I made about every hiring mistake you can make. I've hired hundreds and hundreds of sales reps. I've trained hundreds and hundreds of sales reps, and I've done it pretty much every wrong way you can think of. So then I went through training, I read books, and I studied this to get really good at attracting great talent. And what I learned, the best thing that we did was always be recruiting. We never closed the job opening because sales teams have a natural turnover to them. People are going to underperform. People are going to leave. You're going to let people go. There's just going to be a natural turnover to sales teams. And so we always want to be attracting great talent. The other thing is that if the business is growing and is expanding, then more leads are coming in. You need more manpower. And also, you want to have a kind of a backup farm league system going. And that was one of the best things I was able to do, is try to figure out a way to attract talent, even when I didn't necessarily need it, and give them different jobs and different things to do so that we had people on deck. And when you have, it's kind of like if you're on a professional sports team, like a football team, and you're the star running back, and there's 2 backup running backs that are hungry and working hard and gunning for your job, that keeps you on your toes. And so it's really important to always have a strong recruiting system to attract and select great talent. And so The first thing we do with this system is we start our job description. Okay. The job description is your internal tool for knowing what this job is. This is when we're, defining, This is when we're defining the employment status. Are they a W-2? Are they 1099? Where are they located? Are they in office? Are they remote? Is it a hybrid? What's their work schedule? What are their actual day-to-day responsibilities? What are their performance expectations? How are they compensated? And what manager are they reporting into? This is for your internal awareness to know when you do this exercise and check all those boxes, you have a very sound job description. And so then you can move to writing the job ad. Now, the job ad is where we're going to make this position attractive to the outside world. And I always like starting with the company first. And I share the mission of the company, the customers that we serve, and the culture of what it's like working here. Because this is what I liked leading with, because I felt like this is what I want sales reps to connect with first. Okay? Because there's a lot of people that are motivated by money. That's really not that special. But if you can be attracted to our brand and what we do as a coaching company, that's exciting. Then that you have an interest in this that we can build on. Then I go into the benefits of the income, the training that we provide, the career advancements and the professional development opportunities, and then the requirements of the job. So what work schedule, the location, and the types of day-to-day activities you'll be doing. Now, if you read that job ad, hopefully if you resonate with the company's mission, you like the attractive benefits that we offer, and you see the requirements, what's required of you, if that all adds up, then you're going to apply. And when you apply, so that's important. Then we go into job posting. So I like to post on Indeed. I have posted on LinkedIn. I've used recruiters, internal referrals, so sales team members that have friends, internal referrals, and then the client community itself. So there are probably people, especially if you're in your early days and you're trying to hire your first sales rep or your second, or you're in your early days, don't forget to look into your student community. There are probably people that have worked with you or bought your services or bought your programs that are really a big fan of you and a fan of your brand, and they may have some sales experience, and they may just love the idea of using their sales experience with a brand that they love. And a lot of times salespeople are selling stuff and they're making money, but they don't really love the brand. They don't love the product. They don't really love who they're working for. And if you can show them that you've got a purpose, a mission-driven team and culture and company, then they're getting more than just a paycheck. And that's really the type of people that you're wanting to attract. Okay. And then selection. So selection, this is when now you've got people applying. Now, how do you sift through that and select who you're going to work with? So what I learned to do was a screening. So look through the applications, look through the resumes, pick out the ones that looked good, and conduct a 20-minute phone screening just to weed out any people that aren't going to be a good fit, that probably look better on paper than they do in real life. So screening first, that saves a ton of time. And then we go through a formal interview. And the formal interview is one that strategically goes through their work history and asks a series of questions. And what it does is it exposes cultural red flags. And that tells me, is there a cultural match here? Is there a work history match? Is there a work experience? Is their work experience help them in this role? And is there a cultural fit? And then if they pass that test, they go to the skills test. This is when we put them in the hot seat and we quiz them with no training. We role play the script, we role play objections, and we just grill them and just see where are they at without any training at all. So that was a big test, not because we expected them to get everything right. We just wanted to know what we were working with. If we were going to start training them, where are we starting from? And then always do reference checks. This is very easy to skip. Talk to the former employer and ask them how their experience was and if they would hire them again and what role did they really do, and match that against what they told you during their work history interview. and then a postured offer. So we'd always offer the job with some stipulations. So, hey, there's things we liked about you. There's things that we thought you might need to work on. So are you willing to do the work to bridge these gaps? And that was an interesting test because that helped us to understand if they were going to be really egotistical, if they were going to come in with an ego, or if they were going to come in with humility and really do the work and want to improve. And so that's how we would go through our recruiting system. So that's number 4. So you're always attracting and selecting great talent. Now, once you recruit people, the 5th system that you want to have in place is your onboarding system, how you set new hires up for success. Okay, this is really important. Instead of just throwing them in the deep end in a sink or swim fashion, this is something that I've tried before. Some people can figure it out, but you lose a lot of time and waste a lot of time on people that have potential, but they just need development. This is a really unique industry. I've hired people from all over. I've hired people from inside the industry, and I've been extremely disappointed and underwhelmed. I've tried third-party sales companies, and I got, that was a train wreck because there was a lot of compliance issues and quality of client issues. So what I learned to do was bring people in from outside the industry that have never been in this industry before and train them up from scratch. And I found that to be the most effective way, but it does require a very strong onboarding system. So the first thing that we did whenever people were hired is take them through training. And the very first thing, the goal is to get them bought in. They needed to be sold on the program and the company and the customer journey. So our business was in the real estate world. We taught people how to get started in real estate. Our programs were $30,000 to $50,000. So if you think about that, think about a brand new person coming from, here's a guy that used to sell cell phone plans at AT&T, and now he's coming in and he's going to sell a coaching program for $30,000 to $50,000. His mindset around $30,000 to $50,000, that is a lot of money to him. Okay. And so, but to a real estate investor in that entrepreneurial world, $30,000 to $50,000 is not a lot of money. And so we had to get what we had learned is that before sales training, we needed to get the sales rep bought in and sold on what we do and how we help people. And so the very first part of the training was the company's origin story, what the journey the customer goes through, what the industry is all about. Like how does real estate work? How does investing money work? Because people were never taught that in school. So people that I would hire didn't have any concept of leveraging debt to accelerate wealth and having cash flow and business systems. It was all new to them. So getting them sold on real estate was one of the first steps. And then how our program bridges the gaps and help people succeed and make $30,000 to $50,000 just seem irrelevant. And once they gone through this section of the training, they were bought in. And the sales rep that is bought in, that they would buy your program themselves, they're going to sell the best because they have passion and conviction when they speak to a client. Then we go into the standards of our culture, how we deliver world-class experience, and the regulatory compliance. If you're in the space of business opportunity or financial education or investments where whatever you teach has to do with making more money or building wealth, there are regulatory guidelines that you've got to follow, and your salespeople have no clue what these are. And if they don't know them, they're going to break those rules. And if they break those rules, you can get into serious trouble. So we have to teach them what an income claim, what a performance claim, what an implied claim is, and how to avoid those things. If we don't, then they're going to do all of those things to convert sales, and you're going to build a house of cards. So regulatory compliance. Next is sales training. This is when we get into the actual sales training of the offers and the terms of our program, the framework and scripts we're going to use, and then we start simulating role plays. Once we do basic role plays, we introduce objections, and then we do more advanced role plays. And the point here is to simulate what it's going to be like in the real environment. This is like an NFL team going to training camp before they take the field for the first time. They're going to run through the plays. They're going to practice. If a freaking football team just went on the field on Sunday for the first time, they're going to look ridiculous. They're going to get their butts kicked. So We want to simulate as much of the true experience as possible to get them game ready. And then we went through operations training, teach them the tech stack, how to use the CRM, how to process payments, how to use the phone system, what the schedule is, what our KPIs are, and what the expectations are for the role. So this is a very specific onboarding system. So I've gone through several iterations of onboarding new sales reps. I've done it in person, one-on-one. I've done it virtually through online video modules. If you do it that way, then you need a workbook that they have to fill out, and you got to have check-ins to make sure they're absorbing everything. And then I've done sink or swim, where you just kind of, in the beginning, we just kind of threw them into the deep end and hope they made it. And then I've done in-person group environments where I've actually led onboarding training classes, which was actually the most effective but harder to scale. And so there's different ways to do this, but make sure that your onboarding system is dialed in. And I'd recommend following these 4 categories: getting the buy-in, setting the standards, doing the sales training, and then teaching the operations. So those are the order that I would do that in. So that's system number 5. So let's move on to the next training, this next system number 6, which is going to be our training system. This is how you facilitate improvement on the team. So earlier I said improvement, mastering your craft, is a huge part of the culture on the sales team. So it's important for you to facilitate that improvement. In order for that to be a real thing, then you've got to normalize training and teach them what practice feels like. Okay, so in the early days, I think that one of the reasons that we were able to figure out, crack the code pretty quickly, is that myself and the small group of team members that we had at the time, literally like every waking hour that we possibly could when we weren't on the phone, had to do with us sitting around a table and just masterminding together and just quizzing each other and grilling each other and asking questions. Well, how would you handle this? Or how would you handle that? My client said this today. How do you handle that? And we just would go back and forth, get on the whiteboard, and just kind of figure it out together in a mastermind setting. And that developed this culture of practice and routine. So very, very powerful part of your culture, but you've got to facilitate that. And so the way that I made sure to make training a normalized thing is the first thing that I created was training modules. So this was a video training library, kind of similar to this, where I would just record trainings for my team and showing them, how the framework works, how objections work, and just kind of all the core training modules that they would have in new hire training. I would bring that into a video training library that they could go back and access. And anytime I did new trainings, I remember one of the things that would really trip people up was understanding retirement accounts. When you're investing in real estate, retirement is one of the interesting reasons you want to get into real estate. And so retirement accounts became a topic of discussion. And what I learned was that most people that I was hiring had no understanding of what a 401k was, and what a TSP was, and what a 407b was, and all those things, what an IRA, what was the difference between Roth and traditional. And so I built out a training sequence for that specific purpose, to teach them and educate them, to make it easier. Instead of saying, hey, you guys go figure it out, okay, we want to build a training system for them to follow. And then you want to have scripts and exercises. And these are just things, practice activities and resources that they can use, whether it's objection handling scripts, discovery scripts, exercises and role plays like customer avatars, objection cards, and things that they can participate with. A call library is a big one. So when you're listening to calls that were successful, keep a library of those and label those and categorize those based on the type of client they were, the objections they had, and so that you could go back when somebody's struggling in this area, you could point to that call library and say, hey, here's a couple of calls that are good examples of what you're struggling with, so go ahead and study those. And then live training experiences were happening all the time. So every week we would conduct a formal group live training with our team, and then every day we had daily warm-ups, which was 30 minutes before the day started. we'd get into a room together and rep out and role play scenarios to just prime the pump and get the energy going and get our brains turning for the day before we picked up the phone and got to work. And so you want to have a good, strong training system in place to facilitate that culture of improvement. So let's get into the number 7. The number 7 system here is our coaching system. And this is how you develop sales reps, because no matter what, if you're managing or leading multiple salespeople, there always a time when some of them are doing well and others are struggling. And that is going to ebb and flow throughout the year. It is natural. Salespeople go up and down. It's not like a marketing funnel that you can turn on and it just kind of keeps working for you forever or consistently. Salespeople, they're humans and they're going to come up and down. And so what I learned was that we needed a strong system for developing a struggling sales rep, catching it early on, diagnosing the problem, prescribing a remedy for that problem, and then coaching them to develop them further. And so that's really the system, okay, that we created. First, we have to diagnose. So I would look at KPIs to tell me who on the team needs work. That would lead me to, okay, let me go into their CRM and read the notes in their leads. And the reason that was important is because if you go ask the sales rep why they're doing poorly, what are they going to tell you? They're going to tell you that everybody's broke and the leads are not qualified, because they cannot self-diagnose. That is not a competency of a great sales rep, is self-diagnosing. You've got to go do that for them. So what I'd go do is I'd research the leads, I'd look at the notes, and I'd sift away the ones that were not financially qualified, and I'd look at the ones that had other types of objections, and then that led me to what calls I needed to listen to. And now I'm listening to calls and I'm listening for what is going wrong. And because I have a strong framework that we're all meant to follow, I know what to look for and where the call goes sideways. And so then from there, now I have business intelligence and I can prescribe instead of just bringing the sales rep in and saying, hey, you should get to work on that, do better, or else. I wanted to make sure, okay, well, what would I do if I was in that person's shoes? What type of training would I watch or review, or calls would I listen to, or what type of exercises would make you better in that scenario? And so we want to prescribe a solution, and then we want to develop, which is where we bring the sales rep in for a one-on-one coaching session and deliver the feedback. Now, this is a sensitive meeting because their ego is involved. And so I learned to follow a framework that I created called PACE. It stands for praise, appreciation, correction, and encouragement. And if you follow that framework during this meeting, then the feedback is going to be much more received, and the sales rep's going to be less guarded, and they're going to be more open to the feedback and the plan for improvement. And then always, always, always follow up on a timeline and a specific KPI that needs to be improved so that sales rep can be held accountable for doing the work necessary to improve. That is a coaching system, and if you follow that system, then you're going to have more consistency in your sales rep's performance. The next system that I'll get into is number 8. And this is your reward system. This is how we motivate and inspire and drive performance on the team. This is where we can make the job fun. We can really drive performance. We can motivate people. Sales reps, everybody, they're going through their own stuff outside of work. When they come into work, they like being ignited and excited. Yes, the commission plan is meant to incentivize them, but keeping things fresh and in front of them and constantly giving them recognition keeps them going strong. So I learned to do things on a very frequent basis. So on a weekly basis, in our Monday meetings, there would be shout outs. I would award badges for people. So, when we were on our in-office team, they had boards, like white blank boards that would be posted outside their desk. And they would get stickers for certain accomplishments. If they had a certain amount of talk time in a week, if they had a certain number of deals they put on the board, or certain appointments they got set, if it was our setters. And so they would have badges and just things that they could accumulate and continue to kind of gamify the job. Weekly spiffs to cash spiffs for a certain type of performance or a certain type of behavior we wanted to reward, prizes. So we had a prize wheel in the office that every week, if somebody did something specific from the prior week, they'd get a spin on the prize wheel. We run contests, sometimes individuals contests, sometimes team-oriented contests or paired contests. That would keep people going. And then on a quarterly basis, we have achievement clubs. So this is standardized performance metrics. There were 4 achievement clubs that you could achieve if you performed well on a quarterly basis. And that achievement club came with, that was recognized at a quarterly awards dinners. Where we would hand out trophies and awards for not just the achievement clubs, but for top performances like top producer or hardest worker, like most talk time, or we'd have a peer voted core value award. So all different things that would inspire performance, put swag bags together. So different achievement clubs earn different levels of swag. So some people got hats and jackets and backpacks, and other people got t-shirts and shorts, and some people didn't get anything. So it would be based on their performance. Bonuses and trips. Salespeople love going on trips if you can reward them. We did a quarterly sales trip that was always fun. And this just kept things so exciting and motivating throughout the year. So this was our reward system. And then finally, number 9, we have our management system. And management system is really how you lead and manage the team. So this is our meeting rhythm. When are we meeting? How are we facilitating communication up, down, and across departments throughout the company? So we do a weekly Monday kickoff where we'd look at, celebrate last week's performance. We'd celebrate client success and set the stage and the goals for the upcoming week. A daily huddle to keep reps accountable for what they performed with yesterday, what their priorities are today, and any challenges or issues that they're stuck with. And then we do one-on-ones, weekly group trainings. And then this also comes down to your team structure. How is the team structured? Who's reporting into who? I loved organizing my team into mini teams that they kind of were graded on together. They had their individual commission plans. But, a closer would be assigned to a couple, 2 to 3 setters. And that way that closer had responsibilities beyond just closing deals, but they would develop and train setters. And so closers had multiple roles. They had sales roles and they had coaching roles. And so this that worked for us. That definitely works for my team. Every team's different, but how your team is structured goes into your management system. And then professional development. What does the professional development roadmap look like? And so when people came into our team, I learned that they got bored with just simply selling. They wanted to know, how do I grow? How do I improve? How can I move up in the company? And so, when salespeople got hired, they worked a certain type of lead. And so if they performed well on that lead, I'd move them to another type of lead. If they performed well on that lead, I would move them to this type of lead. And they had this very specific performance track to earn more opportunity. And eventually, if they started as a setter, this was their roadmap to becoming a closer. If they were a closer and they wanted to get into a leadership role, there's a leadership development program to groom them for those leadership roles. And so there's just ways to develop people professionally. And the management system is how we lead and manage the team, inspire performance day to day. And so this is, if you really zoom out here, what you see is a 9-component sales operating system. And what this really means in summary is it comes down to, if you really want to grow a great sales team that performs consistently and is a high-performing sales culture, whether you've got a small team of 6 to 8 people or you've got a large team like I had, where I had 150 different sales reps and managers underneath me, okay, regardless of whether it's a boutique team or a large-scale team, this operating system is vital and will absolutely give you a strong foundation, a strong platform to grow a high-performing sales culture. So if you like that video, if you like that training, go ahead and send me a note in the comments below, and I'll catch you on the next one.